Thank you, Speaker. Speaker, my question to the Minister of Energy. There was a newspaper report today showing that food bank use is soaring because families can't afford to pay their hydro bill and their electricity bill. Sorry, my apologies, Speaker. Their hydro bill and their grocery bill. This past summer, the Minister of Energy refused to call energy poverty a crisis, even though 60,000 Ontario families had had their hydro cut off. We can expect the number of disconnections to soar next spring when Hydro One will resume cutting off families who can't pay their bills. The United Way of Bruce Gray has called for a moratorium on hydro disconnections in Ontario. Will the minister agree to this moratorium?
Minister of Energy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And I know that there are families that are out there having difficulty, Mr. Speaker, when it comes to electricity, and it's important that vulnerable customers have the resources to help avoid the disconnection. And that's why we've overseen enhanced consumer protection rules, including requiring a 10-day advance notice of disconnection, Mr. Speaker, which accompanying resources that will go with this notice, Mr. Speaker, to help customers in arrears, Mr. Speaker. We also have that right now. We've given those powers to the OEB, but we do have a bill in front of the House right now, Mr. Speaker, Bill 27, that I do hope they will all support, even unanimous support, Mr. Speaker, that will ensure that there will be no disconnections during the winter months, Mr. Speaker. That is in front of the House right now. I hope all parties will support that, Mr. Speaker, because we do recognize that more work needs to be done, and that's what we're continuing to do, Mr. Speaker. We're actually got programs out there to help, the OESP program, the LEAP program, but there is more to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Supplementary.
Speaker, the Premier has finally acknowledged that soaring hydro prices are a, quote, mistake. But the minister refuses to do anything to correct that mistake. He won't halt the sale of Hydro One, even though we know that privatization is going to drive prices up even further. He won't direct the Ontario Energy Board to put the interests of consumers ahead of the private investors who will benefit from that privatization. Will he at least agree to a moratorium on hydro disconnections?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. As I said, there is legislation in front of the House right now that I hope that they will actually support, Mr. Speaker. We'd even take unanimous consent on it, Mr. Speaker, Bill 27, that will actually put a moratorium on disconnects during the winter months, Mr. Speaker. We've got that, plus we've got the 10-day notice, Mr. Speaker. There are many, many things that this government has done to ensure that we actually help families that are struggling. We know there is more to do, Mr. Speaker, and we've been doing that. When it comes to looking at the announcements that we've made, Mr. Speaker, just in the last 2 months, our government's had significant and put significant efforts in to ensure that electricity rates are kept affordable, Mr. Speaker. You know what? We will continue to work hard, and if it's 50 cents in savings, Mr. Speaker, or it's $50 in savings, Mr. Speaker, we will look at all aspects that we can do, Mr. Speaker, to help families. Because we understand that the OESP program is there as a program, the LEAP program is there as a program, but there is more to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
No question, the member from